Barry. I'm one of the co-organisers of Social Travel Markets with Steve Keenan there, who's online travel editor of the Sunday Times. We'll move quickly on to our next session. We're looking at the ROI of paid travel blogging. I don't know if anyone's ever been to a travel blogger conference, but quite often when you go there, the discussion centres around monetization of blogs, how you can actually make money as a travel blogger. We're trying to turn that on its head now and just look at it from the other direction to see how some travel companies are working with bloggers to provide content on their sites, paying travel bloggers for their time, hopefully driving traffic to their sites. And we've got a very good panel for us. I'll just introduce you from your right to left. Stuart Lodge, he's the co-founder of Global Village and its main website, roundtheworldflights.com. Before that, he worked at STA Travel and Bridge the World. And roundtheworldflights.com sell round-the-world flight deals, funnily enough. And alongside those deals, they have added destination articles and blogs, mainly written by pro writers and bloggers. And he has lots of video on there as well. And if you follow Stuart, you may notice that he likes to tweet a lot. Sitting next to him, Noel Josephides. Very well-known figure in the travel industry, managing director and founder of Sunville Holidays, based in Middlesex, born in Cyprus. He's been the chairman of many industry bodies, including ATO, and he sits on the board of ABTA, and a few years ago won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the British Guild of Travel Writers for his work in pioneering responsible tourism. Sitting next to him, Andy Yaroj, very well-known UK travel blogger for his blog 501 Places. Very well worth a read if you haven't read it, but he's got a very, very interesting style, always sort of picks out the really interesting detail, so do have a look at that if you can. I'm going to talk just about how you get that ROI if you are a travel company wanting to invest in a blogger and what that actually means in terms of real business for your company. So I'd just like to ask Stuart. Actually, just 1 minute, Stuart. Just have to quickly run through the housekeeping for the people who weren't in here before. This is the Wi-Fi codes. If anybody wants to tweet about the session, use these hashtags, please. STM 2011 for this session. And as it says, don't use it outside the room, please, because we've only got 20 connections, unfortunately. If there are any bloggers in the room who want to join our Silk Road Challenge today, the challenge is to go and visit up to 5 countries that are on the Silk Road that are down on the floor of the exhibition. Post an item on your blog about it, and you could win an iPad. You sign up at that URL there. Social media scavenger hunt. I know a lot of people in the room have signed up for this. We still have a few places left for that tonight. It's a very exciting social media travel trail across East London. You can pick up your documents at the Treasure Trail stand here, and you can do it. Sorry, up to 5. So you can do about 1 country or up to 5. There are 5 different things. If there's a map on the front here showing you where the stands are, or you can look on that site and find where they are. Other travel blogger news. If you're interested in taking part in our State of the Travel Blogosphere survey, go to that URL. It's anonymous. We're going to collate all the results and share them with you so you can see what's happening in the blogosphere. And anyone who takes part in that week go in for a draw for a Kindle. And I think that's probably it. And so these are our speakers. So if I just ask Stuart to come up now, please.
Hello, my name's Stuart. I'm not a blogger, I'm a travel agent. We sell round the world flights, that's all we do really. A few years ago we realised that what we had on our site was technically pretty proficient, a bit different, but it wasn't particularly well written. And we discovered that we could go direct to writers and bloggers, and they could write content and PCs for our site, and to a lesser extent photographers and video guys as well. Now, what is the ROI of social media? It's a bit like saying what's the ROI of a telephone. It's very, very hard to measure. You can measure activity though, and you can measure campaigns. I was doing some sums, and it worked out somewhere between 0.001 pence per click and £4,666 per click. We once organised a competition where you could win 10 round the world flights, and we had 3 entries, and that was an absolute disaster. So when you realise what's bad, you can then realise what's good. Obviously, the cheaper it is for a travel company, the better it is. We've got a general rule of thumb that it's difficult to pick out metrics on ROI, but from a travel company's point of view, if after about a month of an article being published, if it is cheaper than what would be the cost per click of a top performing AdWord, then you're winning. And what I mean by that is, say you spend, I don't know, £100 on an article, and your AdWord for that type of article would be about £1. Now, if you're getting more than 100 clicks, you're winning, so to speak. I realise that a lot of people here today are bloggers, but I'm also very aware that bloggers do chat to each other, and you've got a lot of conferences, and TB Unite, and TBX, and TB Camp, etc. Travel companies don't have this. This is us. So I'm going to try and give you 3 sort of very basic takeaways for travel companies at the moment. Good writers cost money, and they are worth it. I've getting a bit fed up with going to conferences and people talking about links. That's what we're after. We want links. We're going to go to a Panda farm, content farm, and create something that's, to be honest, rubbish. It's not written for the reader, and it's low quality. Now, quality costs money, but it probably doesn't cost as much as you think it does. And if you go to a writer and you say to them, you know, we would like to have a deal, we'd like to bring on a series of posts, for example, they are open to ideas. Like, you do this to a PR company, you can do this direct to a travel writer as well. Just as a general rule, for a good article from a decent writer, you're looking at between £100 and £150 per article, more or less for bulk deals, depending on what you're doing. Less for rehashes, by which I mean that if in the market that you're talking about, it's been published in a foreign newspaper, but you're after a UK type thing, then it's almost like, it's not syndication, but it's usually a little bit cheaper. But talk to them, they are open to ideas, and they're open to deals as well. And that's what I would say to travel companies. You can go to writers, you can talk to them. I also think bloggers and writers are missing a trick by not putting a sort of media pack on their site as well. And a lot of them should really be doing that. It's pretty standard stuff. What's the best way to find good writers? For me, I like reading writers, and I like reading good quality stuff. So Twitter is a no-brainer. What you're really after, though, is a voice that you really like, that you think would appeal to your clients, that would give you some sort of emotional connection to your clients. And again, it's hard to put a price on that, but you can search them out. There's travelwith5ls.com, Travel Editor, the Weekend Supplements, the Times, the Guardian, the Telegraph. You can read writers, and you can approach them as well. How to approach them? Email or DM them. I actually find Twitter, a lot of writers are really active on Twitter, and they're good. They're good to speak to on there as well. What articles work best? There's the whole blogger writer thing, which I think is kind of evolved into, are you a paid writer, or are you just blogging for fun, which is fine. For paid writers or bloggers, we've discovered that having a standalone blog isn't as successful as I'd like it to be, possibly because it doesn't look that great, to be honest. But so what we've done is we've integrated it into the site. So you've got blog posts that are also site pages. And to be fair, then there becomes a sort of mashup between sales and blogs. And it mashes together quite nicely, certainly for us, and appeals to certain people. Destination, unique content destination, obviously is always going to be a hit. But surprising for us is planning articles that are rewritten by professionals get some big hits. We've got some here 50,000. We've got a few that are up to 90 or 100,000 hits, or unique readers basically, in the last 8 months. And these are big numbers. And if you put them on your site, they will come. They do come, especially if it's good quality content. What's the metrics? What are you aiming for? Now, if you talk to somebody, travel companies, I want more bookings. That's pretty much what you want. But you're not going to get that from Twitter or Facebook, generally, unless you've got a fabulous, very simple booking engine, etc. But what I think you can look for is a better site. Now, increased site stickiness, for travel companies, stickiness is very important. You want people on your site longer, you want them researching it. They're on your site and they're looking at it. It's a very important metric when it comes to booking eventually. A lower bounce rate. If you've got high quality content, people are less likely to leave. Sounds so basic, but we managed to get our bounce rate from 33% to, and this is after all the Google stuff, but under 1. And that's for us is a big metric. And possibly the most important thing is authority. Now, we've been the Daily Mail's website of the week last month, we're in the Guardian, the Times, Independent, Lonely Planet, which these things come through having high quality content and authority and knowing what you're talking about. Again, if you go to a content forum and you're just buying, somebody's written an article just for a link, people aren't reading that. They'll read it, but will they enjoy it? If you've got a really high quality article that makes people think, makes people engaged, makes people laugh, cry, argue, discuss, that's what you're after, I think, anyway. From a management travel company point of view, what are you after? Things to look out for. If I knew now what I knew then, I would do it completely differently. But you've got to start with a site structure and then content. Now, we did it the other way around, and there's chicken and egg thing. But travel is quite difficult to restructure basically once you've done it. So think about the categories, think about how you're going to do it. Are you going to do it by honeymoon types? Are you going to do it by retirement holidays? Are you going to do it by type, or is it destination? How are you going to structure it? That's the one thing I would say it's worth thinking before you start. Time management. It can take up an awful lot of your time. And it's enjoyable. It is part of the nice part of running a travel company is you get to do a lot of this stuff. But you've got to be careful it doesn't take up too much of your time, because time in the end, if you're running a travel company, is money basically. The thing that I was thinking about afterwards or earlier, you are in effect becoming a curator or an editor of writers and content within your site. Now that can be a good thing and a bad thing, and there's good editors and bad editors, but you've got to think like an editor. There probably needs, for writing, for travel companies, there needs to be more editing. I'm not saying you go in and you check the spelling, but giving a good general direction to writers and then giving them their head. That's what I would do. I would say let them go and write what they want to write, because they, after all, are the experts. That's it. Thank you.
If we could just have Andy up here now. I like your title.
Good morning, everyone. Are there any optometrists in the room? No, thank goodness for that. I read the WTM brochure, which said, find out how Andy Yarash has gone from a career in optometry to being a paid travel blogger. I had a worry that either nobody would turn up at all, because it sounds really dull, or we'd have a room full of disillusioned optometrists. So I'm glad that's not the case. I'm not going to do any formal presentation, because I'm very keen, I think, as all of us are, to hear the questions that you have, and to hear both from travel companies and from bloggers and writers as to how the two can work together. What I will do is give a little bit of background as to how my career changed around and what I'm doing now, just to illustrate some of the ways that people can actually get paid work writing online with travel companies. It's nothing remarkable, and I think although my model may be different from many other writers or bloggers, it's always surprising to me, because there's a clear need for travel companies to have good online content, and it is a ready channel for bloggers and writers to build their own businesses. I was an optometrist many moons ago, and went through leaving the consulting room to do management. I was a senior manager in a group of laser eye clinics. I then left that to do a full-time MBA, became a crisis management consultant for 3 years, and then I hit 40, and everything changes at 40. I had my midlife crisis, and I thought, what do I want to do for a living? I didn't want to work for anyone else. I love writing. It's something I've always enjoyed and taken through all the jobs I've done. So I thought this is what I'd like to do, and started to build my work from that. As a freelance writer, probably those who write know that in the early days of writing, you're sitting at your desk waiting for things to happen, and there isn't much going on. And I looked at other people who were blogging, and I thought this is a very good discipline to get into, and that's how 501 Places started. It was a place where I knew that every day, even if in the early days I achieved nothing else, I would write 500 words, and I would post them up online, and hopefully I'd get some comments, get some critiques, get some feedback, and that would build up both an audience and build up my own skills. After about a year or so of doing that, I was approached by one company, Discount London, who were looking to build their own online presence. They thought, well, we need to do this social media thing, and I hear this again and again. I don't know what this social media thing is, but we need to do it. Can you help us? And I had a very open brief. It was a case of just writing material about London that was interesting. So we started off, I've just done a few screenshots from the blogs, but started off just writing quirky things about the London Underground or strange place names in London. And these got a lot of traffic. But we learnt very quickly that a lot of traffic on a blog doesn't necessarily equate to bookings on a website. In fact, it didn't even equate to conversions on a website, because these were quirky stories that people would read, that Lonely Planet would pick up, and would get lots of traffic to the blog. But how do we convert that to site traffic? And then over time, we looked at changing those features towards more product-based articles, linking them back to pages within their website. And I've done that for a year and a half. It's still an ongoing process. We're now taking stock and reviewing exactly how the overall strategy of the company looks with social media, and fitting a blog around that, rather than doing the way we did at first, which was dipping a toe in the water and seeing what interest there would be in a blog. Later on, around this time last year, Ben Colclough, is Ben in? Is he this morning? No. I can say what I like then. Ben asked me to do a month as a guest editor on his site. Ben already has a lot of content on Tourdust. It's an adventure travel company, a great little business that does products and works direct with local suppliers, mainly in Morocco and a lot around the Middle East. And he said, how can you bring some of your audience from Twitter, from your social media contacts into our site? So I started to write some posts for them, and it became a regular arrangement where I write a post a week for Tourdust. And it's a mixture. We have roundup posts of activities that they feature as a company, such as snorkeling, and then quirky stories like this, which are designed to probably get people to write comments. And you saw we had 17 comments very quickly from people to say, oh, there is one there, or you've missed out Vanuatu or somewhere. They haven't got a McDonald's. So it brings traffic to the blog. Other people tend to share that information and share those stories if they're of interest. Iberostar contacted me in the summer, and there's a couple of others, Nelly here in the room, and I think Carlos, if he's here, are also writing on the same arrangement with Iberostar, and they've recruited a group of bloggers to basically write content on a particular theme. So I write a section called The View, which is about movies or TV documentaries set in their destinations. And for me, it's obviously a desk-based project. I haven't been to many of their locations, but it's a fascinating project to have to dig out movies that were set in Jamaica or set in the Dominican Republic. There really aren't many that anyone will have heard of, but apart from James Bond. But it's again picking those stories, drawing up a story and linking it back to their destinations. And they've invested quite a lot in this initiative, and at the moment they seem to be very happy with the progress of the project. We've been doing it for about 6 months so far. And then around the start of this year, I met with Noel and with some of the Sunville marketing team, and they asked me to start writing a blog for Sunville. Now, Sunville has several brands, and there's 3 different blogs of which I post a story a week on one or other blog in a ran in a fairly rough rotation. Some of them have been, I mean, the first, I'd just come back from Latin America, and that was actually the impetus to start writing for Sunville, because they have a strong Latin American set of products. And it was quite easy to write about places I'd been to. Other places I'd by chance been to Sunville properties in the past, which made it very easy, having travelled a lot in Europe, or had a lot of overlap. But there are other posts I'll write that I'll ask for staff for information. Maybe somebody has just come back from Brazil, and I'll get them to give me some notes, and I'll take that, curate the information, and create a post out of that. But the idea is to, again, have a regular flow of content that hopefully is readable and hopefully is interesting to other people. So they find that, they read it, they share it, but more importantly, there's always a link at the bottom that goes back to the relevant page on the Sunville site that hopefully will convert to interest and business. I then have access to the Facebook page, and I'll post those comments up on Facebook, and likewise on Twitter. I'll promote the contents on their site and also on my own Twitter feed as well. So if I write something for Sunville or for Tordust, I'll tend to tweet from their account and then share it also on mine. And hopefully the fact from my followers, there'll be some more traffic coming to their site, and that's something else that us as writers can bring to a travel company, is to share our information and therefore bring some of our audience to those companies. I've written odd pieces for Stuart as well, and for V-Travelled Virgin Atlantic. And it's, I think as Stuart said, as writers there is no fixed way. The rates Stuart published are along the lines I've worked to, but I think we're all open to ideas of how to best work. I think good writers and good bloggers in this day and age will take the position of the client and say, how can I deliver what is actually relevant and what is actually bringing value to that client? It's not about me, it's about the client. And to some extent, a lot of it is, dare I say, it blends more with copywriting than with, certainly more with copywriting than with journalism, because what you're looking is to create interesting content, but always that does promote the client's company in some way, whether it's just purely through interest and sparking interest and then driving traffic back to their site. I think that's probably enough from me for now, but I'm going to pass on to Noel, but certainly I'll be interested to hear the questions that people have in a moment. Thank you.
I wish we could fill our aeroplanes so easily as the number of people in this room would be really good. I've been in this industry since 1970 when we started. I'm 64, so you must understand a lot of what the terminology of what's going on is not beyond me, but I'm not interested in it. But that doesn't mean to say I don't, or Sunville doesn't do it. You would call us a legacy company. We turn over £25 million. We carry about 25,000 people. Our main destination is Greece, but we're the biggest operator to the Azores. We're the biggest operator to the Faroe Islands. We're the biggest operator to Namibia, and probably Botswana and Zambia. So we've got a variety of programs, and we charter aircraft. We're quite a risk taker. This year we put on a flight from Heathrow to an unknown. Sorry, this year we put on a flight to an unknown region in Portugal. Unfortunately, we still print brochures because we've always printed brochures and our clients want to read brochures. If we were starting now, we would never print brochures. We spend £200,000 a year on brochures and brochure distribution, which is, for me, a terrible waste of money. But we've tried not to do it, and we don't get any bookings. We spend £278,000 on advertising in newspapers. We spend £70,000 on PR, and the PR agency we use is very good on social media, and certainly we've benefited from that. We only spend £52,000 on online advertising and pay-per-click. We relaunched our website to make it bookable at the beginning of this year. You would think that we would have had a bookable site, especially for our Greek product, a lot earlier. But it really does cost a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time. 15% of our capacity on Greece now is booked online. About our website, and I don't know how good these figures are or not, I heard the KLM presentation and those figures are staggering, but perhaps for most of us here, you have to look at more down to earth. So, since January, we've had 452,689 visits to our website. They look at 5.89 pages per visit. They spend 4.43 minutes on the site. And our bounce rate is 30.82%. I don't know, but anyway, those are the figures. We employ an agency full-time for search engine optimization, and we took the plunge and took on Andy. From our point of view, we've got a Facebook site. I do not have a Facebook site. I would never have a Facebook site. I keep getting emails from LinkedIn, which I delete because you're inundated with all these, and God knows where it all goes. But anyway, the Sunville Facebook page, we had 1,146 visits since the beginning of the year. From our Twitter, 144. But this is, I don't think this is correct, because from bloggers, we had 15 visits. But apparently, it's because we're hosted on Google, and if we move to WordPress, at least it would be coming direct to us rather than through Google. I have an abhorrence of companies like Google because they're far too powerful, and we all depend too much on these sort of organizations. We have 300 followers on Facebook and 300 on Twitter. Why we like blogging is that it helps optimize our site. We've learned a lot. We're doing it very steadily. We don't believe that there is a quick fix. You have to do it slowly. You have to have credibility out there. I used to get very depressed when I Googled holidays in Greece or something else, and then on the front page were companies that I always felt knew nothing about Greece really, and why were we so far behind? You get used to that sort of disappointment, and we believe that blogging helps. We regard bloggers as journalists. We send a lot of journalists out to visit the various areas we do, and we always ask them to write a blog, and it goes on our website, and we believe it works very well. Would we employ more bloggers? I don't know. At the moment, probably not. As everybody says, we can't quantify it, but that's not the point as far as we're concerned. We've learned over many, many years that all you're doing is you're keeping your name out there. I don't care if we don't get any bookings. It really doesn't matter. In the old days, we knew very well that if we put on, for instance, some outlandish tour, which we knew nobody would ever go on, we knew that journalists would pick it up. They would write about it, it would be in the newspaper, and then what happened, people would come to us, they would look at our site, and they'd book something normal. And in many ways, we've learned over the years that that's what you've got to do. You've just got to be out there. You've got to use whatever means you can. Our marketing and all our web is done by Rachel and Stephanie. There's a limit to what they can do. I don't think we would really take on a full-time social media man or woman. We don't make enough money in order to do that. It's a very, very fine balancing act as to the amount of money that we have to do a lot of these things. May sound a lot, a 25 million turnover. You don't make much money in our game out of that sort of turnover. The overheads are quite high, and if you want to do something properly, then you do have to spend money. So my view is that although I never totally understand it, I've never tweeted, I've never done any of this. I hear all about it. To a certain extent, I'm told we have to do it, and I've learned to listen over the years. And so we're doing this as part of our overall mix, because what's the harm in doing it? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noel, for being quite so open there. I'm sure there's some shocked people, particularly if they work for your PR company, that you're revealing how much you pay them.